You too.
Thank you.
Good morning and hello. Welcome to this month's webcast, Performance Reviews at Today's Nonprofits. I hope everybody had a great weekend, and we'll go ahead and get this party started. Today's webcast is brought to you by the Nonprofit HR Hotline. The Nonprofit HR Hotline is a confidential resource, not a call center, available to help walk nonprofit organizations through difficult personnel issues. We currently serve more than 1,500 nonprofits across the nation. So if you're interested in this type of service, please give us a call and we'll let you know how we can help. A couple of housekeeping items for today. If you have any questions, you can type your questions into our question block in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen and submit those. Also, if you have any technical issues, please throw those in there as well, and we'll be glad to try to help you out as much as possible. Today's webcast is worth 1 hour of HRCI certification credit towards your SPHR and PHR. So that information will be emailed to you about 2 hours after today's webcast. If you don't get that email by the close of business today, please feel free to give me a call, shoot me an email, and I'll be glad to help you out with that. Today's session is also available on demand. You can watch the recording to your heart's content for about 12 months by using the same link that got you to the webcast today. Copies of the slides are available in the Event Resources tab of your browser in front of you. If you look below my picture, below the Ask a Question, there's Event Resources. Just open that tab. There's a copy of the slides right there in PDF format. And as always, if you have any subject matter you would like us to cover, we run these webcasts open to the nonprofit public in general every month, usually the last Monday of the month. Please feel free to let me know. I'll be happy to try to pull something together and get you the information you need. Now, without further ado, I will go ahead and introduce our speakers this morning. I'll start with Virginia Clark. Oops, I think I went too far. Sorry about that. Here we go. Virginia Clark is a Human Resources Manager and Volunteer Coordinator with Centerforce in Lakewood, Washington. She's worked with nonprofits in Washington for more than 15 years. So we welcome Virginia. Sonia is the Associate Director of HR Services with 501c Services. She works with me. She's also one of the wonderful experts that you get when you call the Nonprofit HR Hotline. So you'll get a good idea of how much she knows today. She's been in human resources for over 25 years, mainly with nonprofits. Finally, the gentleman on our panel today is Van. He's the Director of Marketing with ReviewSnap. He has more than 30 years of experience handling the HR technology needs of every kind of organization, businesses, and nonprofits. So that's our panel, and we will go ahead and hand it off to Virginia and let her get us started. Good morning, Virginia.
Good morning, or good afternoon for some of you as well. So we're going to start with why we do evaluations. So as leaders and supervisors, we need to meet the needs of our employees as well as our organization. And evaluations help us do that. They provide us with the opportunity to review the performance of our direct reports, and that can help us determine how well the employee has met their job requirements and goals. This is a time, too, that we can recognize accomplishments, so we identify what was done well, and perhaps how did the employee go above and beyond in this last year, and we identify that as well. Appraisals also help to guide progress. A good appraisal continues to refine initial job descriptions. We do that in concert with the employee. And as a result of that, employees know what is expected of them moving forward. Performance reviews are also used to improve performance. Now, that could be as simple as helping an employee that is already performing at a high level to just improve that performance even more. It also helps in correcting poor performance. The appraisal then is an important step in identifying the situation that is creating the problem and then laying out a course of improvement. Evaluations provide us with a time to discuss training and ongoing professional development with our employee. And this can include discussions around opportunities for promotions within the organization or career advancements. That can include some education and additional trainings for the employees. And then, of course, the performance appraisal provides justification for salary increases, for promotions, for transfers, and unfortunately, even for demotions or terminations. Organizational benefits to the appraisal process. I try to think of appraisals as a mechanism for improving and rewarding achievements on a predictable, scheduled basis. It provides for a regular time to give feedback and direction. And this is a time, too, to have a conversation with the employees so they can let us know how things are going with them in the organization. We can also talk about what, if anything, they need from us as a supervisor that they're not getting at this particular moment in time. And very importantly for the organization, performance evaluations are a part of an organization's risk management program. It creates a record to provide legal protection from lawsuits on discrimination, disciplinary actions, and terminations. Benefits to the employee. Employees get acknowledged for their efforts, and it provides direction for the future. They receive clear direction regarding expectations and their role within the organization's overall goals. Appraisals should provide a regular outlet in which to receive honest and open feedback on job performance and expectations. It encourages professional development by allowing an opportunity for the employee to give input and establish training goals and ways in which they can increase their performance. It also promotes engagement and enhances communication between the employee and their supervisor. It's the time that they have set aside to talk honestly and openly, and it can solidify that relationship moving forward. A fair, open, and honest appraisal results in motivating employees to perform their best because they know how and where they fit into the overall mission and goals of the organization. So what are the pitfalls or risks of evaluating performance? Number one is the failure to communicate clearly. We need to be communicating with every employee we supervise, and we need to do that frequently. Check-ins should be weekly when first hired, and then formal evals at scheduled intervals, usually 60, 90 days, 6 months, and then at the year mark. Give timely feedback, especially when performance does not meet standards. Don't save up issues and then surprise the employee at the time of their formal evaluations. Deal with issues as they arise. Allow the employee time to correct issues and then check back with them to see that they understand and have made the correction. Be consistent. I can't emphasize this piece enough. The same standards for all employees doing the same job. And then document objectively the good and the not so good. And remember that length of service is not a work performance attribute. Be aware of and avoid biases. And we all have them. And it's often reflected in how we rate individual employees. I've had supervisors that will rate everybody high, or everybody in the middle, or everybody low. So take a look at how you evaluate on a consistent basis. So measuring performance. Be specific. I think using a specific rating scale is the best. For instance, a 0 would mean responsibilities were consistently not met. A 1 would mean needs improvement, for instance. Responsibilities were frequently not met. A 2 would be good. Responsibilities were consistently met. And 3, outstanding or excellent, where responsibilities were exceptionally performed. And note that number 3 is outstanding or excellent. It does not mean that the employee is perfect. We strive for progress, not perfection here. Then be clear. Make sure the system is clear about what is being measured and that all employees understand that. Employees should be familiar with the forms that you're using and the rating scale and how it relates to their job description. Again, the same standard for all employees doing the same job. Inconsistency in measuring performance from employee to employee is just asking for trouble. It's like hanging a sign on your door that says, "Sue me." So be fair. Evaluations are based on job performance, not personality traits. Objectivity, not subjectivity. Be doable. The performance measures need to be useful. The tool that you're using must allow for a meaningful assessment, and employees need to know how their performance measures up. Be focused. Schedule time. No interruptions. Don't take phone calls or try to multitask. I remember I had a supervisor one time that I may have taken 6 calls while I was there and then proceeded to continue to type while we're in the middle of the evaluation. That's not a good thing. Remember, performance reviews are not a lecture. It's a two-way street, and it's a two-way conversation or discussion with your employee. When documenting performance, again, be objective. Information must be fact-based, measurable, and observable. So did you see it? Did you hear it? Or did someone else tell you about it? And if that's the case, then be sure to verify that. Write it down regularly, completely, and accurately. And do this on all employees. If you don't write it down and you don't document, it didn't happen. So be prepared. Come to your performance evaluation with the job description and review that with your employee. Update it for areas that are no longer applicable. Training file. So what was completed and what is still on the table. Look at previous evaluations and review the performance goals that were listed for completion or carryover. Establish new goals together. Projections. Did the individual meet their outcomes? Again, establish new ones with input from your employee. Goal-related information. Were they met or do they need to be carried over? Feedback. Include all which would be official feedbacks regarding performance, good or not so good. Letters of appreciation. I think some folks still do the letters, but it can be in email form too. And these would be from families, vendors, community, coworkers, other supervisors, clients, and so on. If they're sending emails that recognize your employees for a good job, then print them out and be sure to share them with your employee. Other notes. You might have meetings with your employee or your own observations, performance discussions that you've had in the last year, assignments that have been given that are not a part of the performance or the job description, and projects, etc.
Well, hello, everybody. I am Sonia Llewellyn, as Max said, from 501c Services. So now we're going to talk about, let's see, prepping. As you go into this, these following questions that I'm going to talk about are questions for you to think about and use in your preparation. And that's whether you're going to be giving the evaluation or you are receiving the evaluation. So when you're going into it, I want you to think about what are the important items to discuss. Are there some cold, hard truths that you need to talk about? Or are you celebrating a banner year? Are you going to talk about performance enhancement or career development? Number 2, is there one critical point to be addressed, or is there a central message that you want to get across? Number 3, what questions do you have? I want you to think about, that going in. Prepare for it. And perhaps if you're the one giving the evaluation, you're going to ask your staff, how am I doing in meeting your expectations? And that fits as well for both the employee and the manager. And number 4, what outcomes are desired? I would think that in all of it, it is to further, good performance. It's to either correct poor performance or encourage better performance. Or is there a promotion in there? And of course, it's also to build trust between you and the manager, or you and your staff. Number 5, how are you feeling going into this evaluation? Are you excited? Are you anxious? Are you curious? Or perhaps ambivalent? Number 6, how are you going to contribute to a meaningful dialogue? What are you going to bring to the table to keep that dialogue going? Tips. I want you to be honest, be respectful, be constructive and thorough. And this is often the hardest part for us. We're so afraid of hurting people's feelings, or we're afraid that it's going to be a boxing match and we're going to have to defend ourselves. But I really encourage you to really reach out and try to be honest, and that is hard. I want you to be objective. That is fact-based, needs to be measurable information and observable, not subjective. Subjective information is based on personal opinions, interpretations, points of view, emotions, and judgment. Focus on the professional. Keep the conversation focused on the professional behavior and performance. Don't get personal. I want you to be balanced. Virginia mentioned earlier those supervisors that tend to rate all in one area, either everybody's great, or everybody's poor, or everybody's just mediocre. Remember those horns and halos. I want you to provide specific examples, or invite responses. Continue to invite responses from your employees throughout the meeting. Don't let it become one-sided. Dialogue, not monologue, a discussion. Give objective, specific examples. Stick to objective examples specifically, and especially when you're pointing out an area that needs improvement. Remember that those examples need to be measurable, factual, and observable. And I want you to listen actively. Turn off your internal chatter. Maintain eye contact. Pay attention to how you're sitting, your body language. And use affirmative phrases such as, okay, I see, go on, or rephrase if you need to. And of course, create a we mentality. You want to work together to help the employee give the best performance and have the best career opportunities that are available. So going in, lay out the agenda. Start out by laying out a flexible agenda that's going to include plenty of time for feedback and discussion. Remember that dialogue. Set a positive tone with a couple of comments reminding your employees that the purpose of the appraisal is to improve performance and to not find fault or to cast blame. Your job as a manager is to help them be successful. Encourage input and discussion. You want to do that with thoughts and ideas from the get-go. Make sure that your employee understands at each point of your discussion what you're saying. Give the good news first or the bad news. Don't sandwich information. Don't dilute the message. If you're going to give the good news first, perhaps about successes, goals met, those exceeded. Focus on the strengths. But again, like I said earlier, don't ignore on the areas that they can improve upon. Because if they don't know, they can't fix it. Review performance based on job descriptions and competencies. Now, of course, that's super important. You want to make sure that you're focusing on what the job description says. It's a great time to perhaps refine the job description. Perhaps a lot of the pieces that they're doing, or a couple of them, no longer apply. And same with those competencies that are needed for that specific role. Make sure that if there's changes to be made, that now is the perfect time as you're in that formal discussion. So it's a great time to look at those. So you're going to discuss strengths and weaknesses. You want to talk about accomplishments. Excuse me. Make note of those, and of course you should be rating on the period that you are, whether it's you do quarterly appraisals, twice a year. Make sure that the time that you are assessing people on, that it's during that time. And ask your employees, go back to what one thing can I do better for you, and how do you like to be recognized when you do good work? Identify those areas for improvement. Be encouraging. Make sure that the feedback is constructive. Remember that constructive feedback is specific. It needs to offer support. It's honest and ongoing and not just once or twice a year. And it needs to be helpful and timely. Don't wait. And don't tiptoe around an issue. Make sure that your employee leaves knowing specifically what they are doing right and what they are doing wrong or needs correction. Give specific examples to make sure that your employee understands and reach an agreement before they leave on how the performance will be improved and the time frame for achievement. Develop that action plan. Review progress on current goals, specifically as it relates to the duties and goals that were set at the last evaluation period, whatever timing that is. Give examples so that you both know what is being reviewed. The end. Endings are as important as beginnings. You want to encourage good performance, and on a positive note, by reviewing where your employee is doing a good job and encourage them to take advantage of any professional opportunities to improve their performance. Number 2, communicate those areas for improvement. Especially when performance has been inadequate. Make sure that they know what will happen if they don't improve. Assure your employee you want to work together to be helpful to them and to be successful. Be specific. For example, failure to improve and maintain, say, production time within 30 days will result in discipline, which may include termination from employment. So make sure that when they leave, if there are goals or their performance is not up to standard, that they know what's going to happen if there isn't the improvement that they need to make. You're going to lay out an action plan, if needed. Lay out a detailed action plan that includes those measurable tasks and a reasonable, doable timetable for accomplishing them. And make sure that they have the time and tools to be successful. You want to make sure that you're going to confirm their understanding. Summarize whatever those agreed upon actions are that both of you are going to take. And make sure, again, that your staff understands what's expected of them in the action plan, and you are in agreement that the action plan is realistic. And then lastly, you want to allow extra time for comments. They may want to jot some comments down, make some comments. Allow them to do that. They may not agree with their evaluation, and that's perfectly fine. Allow them to write that in there. Get signatures and make copies for both you and the employee.
Hi, folks. My name is Van Solokov. I'm the Director of Marketing at ReviewSnap. I want to thank both Virginia and Sonia for setting the stage to talk about the future of performance review. Virginia talked about why we do appraisals, and Sonia was just discussing the process of the meeting and how to make sure that that meeting is the most effective. We're going to cover 3 things in my section of this presentation. We're going to talk about trends in performance management, what we see at ReviewSnap. We're going to talk about creating a culture of performance management, and then we're going to touch on the benefits of automating your performance management process. So first, let's click into here. So ReviewSnap has been providing web-based performance management reviews for almost 10 years. And over this past decade, we've seen a lot of trends emerge. And what I want to touch on right now are the 5 that we see currently in play. Some of these may be familiar to you. In fact, I think really what we've been discussing mostly here this morning would be what we would call the competency-based review, which are the more traditional forms of performance management review. They're the things that are typically done in a one-on-one annual performance cycle. And mostly employees are assessed as to how well they've achieved their core competencies, how those are aligning with the company's mission and vision and goals. And at some point in that process, the managers must identify the core competencies and then relate them to each of the job descriptions they've got to deal with, and then run the individual reviews. It can be kind of time consuming, but it's what we typically think of when we're thinking about performance reviews. One of the emerging trends is this concept of frequent check-ins. Pardon me, I must wet my whistle. Thank you. So the one and done annual performance review, which we typically think of, is becoming a thing of the past for a number of reasons. One of them is that the end of a fiscal year doesn't necessarily align with the performance goals and targets, especially with the way that organizations work on short-term projects and have short-term quarterly goals and things like that. Frequent, less formal check-ins are better at keeping employees focused on their own goals, engaged in their position, and headed in the right direction. And it also allows management to make corrections if someone's getting off course. They can recorrect them, get them back on course, and it just means fewer surprises at the end of the year. So one of the trends we're seeing is this idea of frequent check-ins. Now, how frequent? That's going to be up to your organization. Just like a rating system is going to be up to your organization. Things that you need within your own culture to reinforce that culture are the things you're going to see manifesting in these kinds of trends. And the next trend I want to touch on is this idea of the 4x4 process. And so this is really breaking away quite a bit from something like a competency-based review. And it's a more frequent and more informal process. It's a variation. 4x4 is a variation on the frequent check-ins idea. So here's how a quick case study or short story about how it can be used. So a customer, Union Bank and Trust, needed to overhaul their process. And so what they did is they took a survey of their managers and their employees, and they wanted to find out how to make their review sessions more productive. And they came up with a handful of bullets. They wanted to improve their communications. They wanted to gain accurate knowledge of the employees' accomplishments. They wanted to have more employee engagements, find out what was motivating folks, and they wanted it to be quicker and faster. So what they did is they came up with 4 questions, and they sit down 4 times a year with their individual employees, and they ask these 4 questions. What have you accomplished in the last 6 months? What will you accomplish in the next 6 months? What challenges are you facing? And how can I help you be your best? So that's an example of a 4x4 process. There are 4 questions that are asked 4 times a year. Now, I know some of you are frantically making notes on some of these ideas. Don't worry about it. I'm going to be providing you with a resource at the end of my presentation that summarizes all of this information for you. The next trend we'll touch on really quickly, goal-based reviews. And basically what we're going to talk about here is that the idea that goals are a little bit tricky. Tricky for many employees to wrap their heads around. Maybe the exception being salespeople, because salespeople, are typically measured and rewarded by goals. But for other folks, goals are just kind of float around in the cloud somewhere. They're kind of elusive and far removed from the everyday work. Or employees oftentimes are afraid they won't be able to meet a performance or a particular goal, even if they excel in other areas. So sometimes, instead of a goal being a healthy, positive, productive thing, they're viewed as an enemy thing, not a positive thing. So what we want to see when we're setting goals, and the trend that is supporting this, is that we want them to be specific, we want them to be quantified, we want them to reassess the metrics. When you're in the goal, you want to make sure that how you're measuring is the right way to measure. You want to involve the employees. You don't want to arbitrarily or set goals from an ivory tower point of view. And then you have to have the follow-up process. These are things that we've heard a little earlier today, both from Virginia and Sonia. It is definitely something that we support at ReviewSnap and believe it's one of the trends that we see going on right now. Finally, and this is possibly the most interesting trend, is the 360-degree feedback. I don't know how many folks are familiar with it, but basically the 360-degree feedback model is going to look at an employee's performance based on feedback from many sources, including their managers, their peers, associates, and they look at themselves. They do self-critiques. And this all-inclusive approach provides a panoramic snapshot, if you will, of the employee's work over a specified period of time. So it's powerful because, it's a powerful tool to use in a team environment because you can get the feedback about somebody who may be quiet and diligent and working in the corner, but they're not always trumpeting their own accomplishments. Here, the feedback is given about how outstanding Jane or Joe is at what they do, even if they're not actually, walking around like a peacock showing their feathers. So these are the 5 trends that we see going on right now. These are the 5 trends that are discussed in our Performance Management for Dummies booklet, which we're going to be providing to folks at the end of the presentation. What I want to segue to right now, however, is talking about creating a culture of change, a culture of performance management within your organization. So, to do that, we have to look at 3 topics. We have to talk about revamping your performance reviews. We have to talk about innovating ideas to improve those reviews. And we have to talk about shaping the high-performance culture itself. So what we're going to see here as we talk about shaping or revamping your performance review system, we're going to say that, and we're just going to make this statement, performance management as an annual event isn't really cutting it anymore, especially when we think about millennials and the younger folks that are coming into our work environment and helping us move our organizations forward. Millennials absolutely require more frequent check-ins. They want that kind of feedback from folks on a regular, frequent basis. It almost forces the organization to have to shift how they handle these kinds of feedback moments and review processes. And I think that really, more than the size of an organization, I think it's the composition of your organization that's going to help you think about what kind of a performance approach you might want to take, whether you're a small org or a large org. And so I think you have to look at the demographic of your employees, and you have to recognize that maybe there's fewer boomers like myself in the group, and there's far more millennials in the group. And so you may just be forced by default to have to adapt to a review process which satisfies those younger generation, the folks that really want those frequent check-ins. They want the more frequent check-in process, the more 4x4 process, and they'll want 360-degree reviews. So I'm not talking about, I'm trying to answer some questions while I'm talking here. So I'm not talking about the specific size of your org. I'm talking about the demographic makeup of your org, right? Some ideas to innovate how we get the process improved. I'm just going to throw out 3 or 4 ideas that have been done by bigger companies and what they've done. So Costco, when their employees hit the top of the pay scale, they're still eligible for bonuses twice a year. So there's an innovative idea to what do we do as we're shifting our culture? How do we get to reward people frequently? What kind of mechanisms work? General Electric has a mobile app that lets people track performance whenever they need to via text or audio. They can record. They can say, we just finished working on project ABC. It's up and running. We're really excited. We're gonna get a detailed report out directly, whatever it might be. Google lets people set their own goals. Now, you can't set easy peasy goals because their culture won't support that. So again, the culture is shifted there. The people they set their own goals, but those goals are very audacious. They're big, what we call big, hairy, audacious goals in the tech sector. And then lastly, another example of this kind of shift into a high-performance culture is Zappos. Employees can give other employees their internal, what they call Zollars, which are their redeemable currency for things from the Zappos store. And so these are all ideas that help these organizations shift their culture from a traditional, perhaps, competency-based reviews organization to something that's what we would call a high-performance, cutting-edge kind of organization. So it's a lot of stuff to think about. And when we think about how we might be handling performance reviews now, and a lot of folks use Excel spreadsheets and PDF documents, and even if you've got 60 people and you're running reviews once a year, that can be a daunting thing to track and manage and keep everybody on the pace so that you can, in fact, complete your review cycle on schedule. So what I want to talk about here really quick, this list of 10 items, these are 10 benefits to automating your performance review system. And again, this is what ReviewSnap specializes in. We provide services to nonprofits, municipalities, for-profit organizations, multinationals, small companies, medium-sized, and enterprise-level organizations. And why do we think automating a performance management system is a good idea? Number one on our list is that it tracks the paperwork. Once you put the workflow together, once you've loaded up we can load up your documents are in the system, people are familiar with them, you route those things through the workflow, and it tracks them. So it automatically takes those documents to the next person in the program. It keeps the program on track. Because it's keeping the program on track, as the manager of the program, you're able to view your dashboard and see who has responded, who's due to respond, who's completed, and who owes answers. It improves the experience for your employees, for your organization. It absolutely makes it smoother. It absolutely makes it easier. It improves security. It's a secure web-based platform, for example. Everything is password protected. You've got the history. It improves your compliance requirements for any kind of issues you might have during the employee life cycle, all that kind of good stuff. It aligns feedback. Everybody is using the same processes. You set the mechanisms. You apply the rating systems. It absolutely allows folks to keep everything on an even keel. It's extremely cost effective. They're customizable. 24/7 access. So you're a manager. You've got 30 people in your group. Everybody's doing their reviews, and it's on you to go through and check off everything and make sure they're all going to be done. And I don't know if you have that time in your workday, but you might need to do it after hours. Or your employees might need to log in and take care of their inputs after hours. So 24/7 is really important. Easy implementation, that's just the way we work. And then it's easy. It really is. Our system is exceptionally easy. I'm not going to pitch you too hard on it. Instead, what I want to do is offer you a free gift, Performance Management for Dummies. Mac's going to take over in a second and tell you how you can get your copy. This book will answer your questions, give you an orientation to automated systems. It talks about the trends that I've touched on today. It talks about creating the culture of performance management that we were just speaking to, and it also contains those very same 10 benefits for performance management. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I'm going to turn it back to Mac Smith.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. So we're going to kind of convene here as a group of experts, and then we'll get into your questions in a moment. So now's the time to shoot us questions in the little question box below my picture, and we will address those in just a second. But first, Van's copy of performance reviews for dummies. Not that we're saying that's anybody on the call. But if you go under Event Resources, that drop-down menu in the bottom right-hand corner, that is in a PDF format, and you can download that directly to your desktop right now and go through it. And that does contain a lot of the items that we talked about today. But I wanted to kind of ask you guys a question as a group. So obviously, this whole area of organizational management and culture is kind of in flux as we throw technology into it, and different organizations have different abilities. Can you all discuss what's the first step for these groups? If they feel like they need to make a change, if they feel like they need to stop doing this type of review, maybe the traditional one, the annual guy, or if they kind of decided to do a different type of review, it's not working, they want to take another. Can you guys talk about a little bit about what are their first steps? How do they need to start making these changes, and where do they get the buy-in? And obviously they get buy-in from leadership, but also from the employees, or the system doesn't work. So can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I was just going to say, this is Sonia. We switched here at 501 from a very loose annual review to quarterlies a number of years ago. And we did that with a lot of input from the management level, a lot of discussions on what it might look like, how long it would be, whether or not we wanted to use ratings. So a lot of talk and discussion. We wanted everybody, as much as possible, to buy in. And we eventually went to a quarterly with a few questions that are asked every single quarter. And it's been fairly successful here. So that's how we've done it at 501.
Yeah, and this is Van. I want to piggyback on what Sonia is saying. I think that the first step is soliciting that feedback. I mean, you kind of have to do an evaluation on your current system, and you have to do maybe, I don't know if it's not a SWOT analysis, some kind of pros and cons analysis on what the current system is like, and understand what people like about it, because they might like aspects of it, but also to identify what they don't like. And then I would also encourage your orgs to get the feedback from all levels of the org, from line workers or field reps all the way up to management, to, again, get that feedback from folks, understand what component parts might make sense to continue, and then do some kind of a evolution on the process through feedback. I think so. That first step then is going to just be getting the pros and cons figured out, and then understanding what people would like to see. And again, if you want to look at some of the trends, reference the book, and you'll see those trends that you could throw out there to get some inputs on. That would be my recommendation.
Well, this is Virginia, and I certainly agree with what Sonia and Van have been saying, but we're a fairly small nonprofit social service working with adults with disabilities, and we have maybe 4 different programs. So we have folks doing a variety of duties and responsibilities. And I think what we have would lend itself well to maybe a couple of different kinds of evaluations. Like Sonia was saying, I think it would fit well for management to do the quarterly check-ins, and also maybe for the programs that actually have outcomes that they have to meet. So right now I'm thinking that you could have a couple of different ways that you do performance reviews within your organization. I don't think everybody has, or the one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
I think that's very true. That's a great point, Virginia. Yep.
Okay. Sonia, we didn't have a question. Molly wants to know what were the questions that 501c determined, kind of agreed upon to shoot out quarterly? Can you give specific examples?
So I was just trying to find it on my computer. It's a very, very simple form, and it the first part is, what were your accomplishments from the last quarter? The next one is to-do list for the upcoming quarter. Then a wish list, items for future quarters, and then comments. I mean, that's as simple as it is. So it's worked for us. The managers have the employee do theirs, self-assessment, and then the managers write theirs, and then get together and discuss each point and move forward. Now, of course, we're a pretty small organization. There's only 25, 26 of us, and so we went with something that was very basic.
Okay, so we're getting questions in, but I wanted to ask you guys one more question. As you all have evaluated and conducted programs, throughout your careers, is there anything you can think at the top of your head that we should talk about that doesn't work? Please don't do this. Please don't do that. I mean, Virginia got into, taking notes during a meeting, but just stuff that kind of pops up every now and then. You're like, oh my Lord, somebody else is doing this too. That we might want to just send up a flare gun and just, guys, please don't do this. Any kind of not to do that you'd like to push to our audience?
I'd like to field that question from an organizational standpoint, and it goes to the risk management piece of it. And I've spent quite a bit of my professional career in a courtroom, and I've also, as an HR director over the last 20 years, we've been sued a couple of times, not with this organization. But that's where I say that you have the same standards and measurements for the same type of positions, and that you have an administrative person like your HR person review performance reviews so that you can avoid some of those pitfalls of having, a supervisor rating everybody a 2, for instance, or you have them, everybody is good or average or excellent, because that's not helpful if you have to defend any decision that you make that's unpleasant. For instance, a demotion or a discipline action or a termination. So, and the other piece of that is avoiding the personality traits kind of thing. That's why I mentioned, there can be other rewards for longevity, but it should not be a part of the performance measurement in your review. Does that make sense? I hope.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. Does anybody else want to add anything?
I was just going to say, this is Sonia, that what we hear a lot on the hotline are people are waiting to address issues with performance until the review. So something could happen in October, but the review is in June, and they're waiting to talk about those issues until the performance review. So don't do that. It seems intuitive that you wouldn't wait, but it is something we hear over and over and over again.
Great, excellent. Okay,
Can I make one more comment about that?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
If there is a legal action, they can come in and they can look at all your records, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a consistency in performance reviews. They're looking for people being measured against the same standard in the same position. And believe me, if you don't have a way of having a check and balance on that, it can be a part of a court record and can be unpleasant at times.
Right. You want to prevent any kind of claim for discrimination.
Excellent. Okay, so we have some questions coming in. Real quick, to just a little bit more housekeeping. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can in the amount of time we have left. We might go over just a little bit to try to get everybody in. But everybody will get an email from us following the end of this with a link to the recording of it, so you can forward that to whoever you need to or watch it again. Also, a copy of the slides is under Event Resources, which is in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. There's a drop-down tab. And that also has a copy of the performance reviews for Dummies that Van and ReviewSnap have provided us. Okay, so I will go ahead and hop into the questions here. You guys feel free to jump in whenever you want to comment on something. Take turns as possible. We'll go ahead and start with number 15 here on your screen. How do you see that nonprofits are allocating salary adjustments based on the results of performance reviews, annual or otherwise? So we're talking about salary adjustments based on reviews. What kind of comments do we have on that?
Virginia,
well,
you're in the trenches. Van.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead, Van.
Oh, I just want to say that within our system, there's a compensation dashboard that allows you to manage all the compensation that you're allocating to your employees across your org. So the system that we provide allows you a mechanism to manage that. Now I'll let Virginia speak to the gritty detail of it, but the system can help you manage.
Yes, and I think, some organizations may have that in place based on how you're scoring on your appraisal. The one thing I would caution again, and this is risk, is that you have to do a lot of supervisor training because you want objective evaluations, not subjective. So just because somebody likes somebody, they rate them higher, or vice versa. So you have to really be careful with that piece of it.
Yeah, I want to touch on that one more thing. I heard a story when I was down at the SHRM conference in D.C. last week about an organization that doesn't actually have any performance management system in place at all, because the boss knows everybody, so the boss knows how everybody's doing, so the boss just makes decisions by himself, and this is an org with 150 workers in a manufacturing environment. So that's not what you want to do. That's a don't do that one, right? Yeah. You have to have some system in place. Don't do that one.
That's one of those where you hang the sign out that says, just sue me.
Sue me.
Yeah, I was cringing when I was being told that story. All right, I'll let you get back, Matt. Go ahead.
No problem. Okay, so one question has come in from Beth, talking about they have bonuses for those at the top of their pay scale. Do you all know of any other rewards programs for employees who are at the top? And what kind of other pay scale rewards?
This is Sonia. I have not heard anything else beyond a merit-based or some sort of just average, 1% or 2% that you're giving for an increase annually.
One of the things we're doing is because money is tight in a nonprofit, we're sending out a 5-question monkey survey to folks about how can they be rewarded for performance other than by a monetary basis. And maybe it's an extra vacation day, maybe it's a couple days off with pay. Those kinds of things is what we're looking for.
That's a terrific
right. Idea. Yeah, and I would reinforce that. There are other non-cash ways to provide employees with a sense of reward for their accomplishments. Something as simple as, I just said non-cash, and I'm going to say something as simple as Starbucks gift cards can do a lot for making people feel good about the fact that they did, accomplish something and stuff like that. But certainly, the extra days off, some other perk, maybe the best parking place in the parking lot, for a period of time. These are all non-cash ways that you can make that employee feel better and rewarded for doing their extra effort work or being the top of the class, as it were.
Okay. I'm also getting some notes, just to interrupt, I'm also getting some notes right now that our system might be emailing you all saying that you have not attended, even though you're on the call right now. I don't know what kind of hiccup is going on. If you get that kind of email from me saying that you did not attend, but you're actually on the call, just reply back. It'll go back to me, and I will correct it. So hopefully I won't be getting too many emails, but I really apologize for that. One other question, and as you all can see on your screen now, next month's webinar is the doozy, right? The overtime rule. We'll be discussing that at the end of July. Sonia will be on that call with us, so register now for that. That one might actually have an opportunity to fill up completely. So go ahead and register for that. Another question for you guys. What are your thoughts about discussing compensation during the performance meeting? Is that something that can be, when do you have that conversation?
This is Sonia. I was going to say a lot of that depends upon whether or not you have your performance appraisals you're going to be compensating people for meeting goals. And if absolutely that's part of the process, then talk about it during the time. Or you have a follow-up meeting after the appraisal. So you can do either one. I think it depends upon the culture of your organization and what you're going to be doing for your performance management system.
And what I want to piggyback on that with is that I think it depends on what your cadence is for your reviews. If you guys are on an annual review cycle and that's the only time you have the review and that's the only time you discuss such things, then you're kind of painted into the corner of there will be a compensation component in the conversation. If you've moved to a more frequent check-in model or a semi-annual or even quarterly model, then only one of those sessions would be the session in which you would discuss the compensation. And obviously that would be communicated to your org as part of your rolling out whatever that new program would be. But certainly if you're in an annualized mode, that compensation question or conversation more likely than not is going to have to occur during that conversation.
Okay. Okay, and final question. Is there any opinion about doing all the evaluations at the same time, so that, everybody's due on July of every year, or is it okay to have a running performance review? So John is in June and Betsy is in July and Doug is in September. I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
Go ahead, Virginia.
I've experienced both, and I think it depends on how many employees you have as direct reports. The more employees that you have, I think the more difficult it becomes to do everybody at the same time. And for a couple of reasons. You kind of go a little nuts if you've done your 15th evaluation, and maybe you're not giving everybody the same time and attention that you would if you were only doing, 1 or 2 a month.
Just what I was going to say. Exactly. That's what we've heard.
Good. All right. So we're all in agreement on that one. Well, I would appreciate thank you, everybody, for attending today. Thank you to Sonia, Virginia, and Van for being here with us. Like I said, there seems to be a little bit of a technical difficulty. Some of our listeners did get an email about 5 minutes ago saying they weren't on the call when they are on the call. So just reply back. It should be going back to my email address, msmith@501c.com. Just reply back and say, Max, trust me, I was there, and I will get you your HRCI credit without any question. So thank you, everybody. I hope I'll see everybody at the end of July. You too, Sonia, for this wonderful coverage of the overtime rule. I'm sure that's going to be a great discussion. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.